Hey, friend, welcome to She Said podcast. I'm your host, Laura Cox Kaplan. If you are new to this podcast, I create content and curate conversations to help support women in their personal and professional goals, especially as we evolve and pivot in our lives and careers. So I'm really happy to welcome you here today. I am also absolutely thrilled to welcome this week's guest, my dear friend, Dana Perino. Dana, of course, as you know, hosts Fox America's Newsroom, The Five, and also a weekly podcast called Perino on Politics. And before that, of course, she was press secretary to President George W. Bush, which is actually where Dana and I met and became friends. She has written several best-selling books, including one of my personal favorites, Everything Will Be Okay. But today she is joining us with a new book, and it is a bit of a departure for Dana. It is a fiction book called Purple State. And what makes this book so interesting is that it is based around many of the principles and the advice that she included in Everything Will Be Okay. So I am so excited to welcome her here today. I have a copy back here of Purple State behind me. So a few things that I wanted to talk to Dana about today. I wanted to have her talk about the pivot from nonfiction to fiction, about what you can say and accomplish in a novel in a way that is truly different than what you might be able to present in a nonfiction book, why the choice of setting matters. She talks about the fact that this love story takes place in a political swing state of Wisconsin, why that actually matters, and also what the three women who are at the center of this story ultimately reveal, especially related to the difference between maybe a safe choice and the right one. I think you're going to love this conversation, especially if you've ever felt caught between ambition and love, or between the life that you planned and maybe the life as it's playing out. And of course, Purple State is a great one to add to your summer beach reads list. It is part of our She Said podcast summer beach read series that we've been rolling out. If you've missed any part of this series, I hope you will go back and check out every episode. They are truly, truly fantastic. But for now, here is episode 368 with my amazing friend and author of Purple State, Dana Perino. Enjoy. Dana Perino, my dear friend, welcome to She Said.
It's great to be back and to see you. I loved keeping up with this podcast is incredible. You have built quite an amazing work of art here.
Well,
you're great guests, good conversations, really helpful.
Well, you're sweet to say that, and I have to give you a huge shout out because you've been so supportive of this podcast. You've talked about it on the air. You included a little endorsement of it in Everything Will Be Okay, which is what was your last book coming out. I was so honored that you did that. And so, people like you and who support other women and support projects like this, it means so very much, and it sets such a beautiful example for other people. So
yeah, well, it's impressive.
Really
I know you. I mean, it'd be interesting to have a conversation with you about where it started, because I remember when it started and where it is now. I mean, you've come a long way.
Yeah, you were episode 100, and then you came on. You've been on. This is your third.
Yeah, I think so.
Third time. Yeah, third time on, which is amazing. No, you came on right at the beginning, and then you came on again to talk about Everything Will Be Okay.
Yeah.
And now to talk about,
here we are.
Yes, this amazing journey into fiction, which I absolutely love. So, Dana, why don't we start the conversation there? Because everybody knows you, they know your work, they know you've got this incredibly packed schedule, but you still make time for projects that really go to the heart of what we try to do here at She Said podcast, which is support other women.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting departure for you. You have a number of best-selling books, all nonfiction. This is your first foray into fiction. So why fiction?
When I started getting ready to do this book tour, I knew that this would be a question, and I would be like, why? Yeah, why? I guess in a way it goes all the way back to when I was a little kid. I loved books so much, and I always have. And I mostly only read novels for fun. Like I'm not somebody who's deep into like nonfiction history books. Sometimes memoirs. I like a memoir for sure, but I pretty much prefer to read fiction. And um, when I was in first grade, when I was asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I would say an author. I loved Laura Ingalls Wilder books. I loved The Little House on the Prairie, of course, Nancy Drew, and then on and on. And then as I got older, obviously, I went in a fact-based journalism direction. Worked with you in the Bush administration and at the White House, and I've been at Fox News and News, and I continued to read. And then I would like to support authors, and I never post about a book I don't like. I will only post about books I like because I would never do that to an author because it's just subjective. Who am I? Who cares? But um, I I guess I had a fantasy of maybe seeing, like, could I do it? But then I didn't think I could because I've never taken a creative writing class. And I admire people like Ann Patchett, of course. Like her first book, Patron Saint of Liars, is one of my very favorites.
Amazing.
And she wrote that after her MFA program. And I was like, I don't have time to take a master's of fiction. And I would read novels and go, wow, how did they do that? I didn't know. I didn't understand. Like, wow, how did they do? And then I was talking about this idea, this purple state idea, at dinner one night. I think I said I had an idea, and I was with an author named Andrew Graff. Your son actually would like his books.
Oh, yeah?
Raft of Stars is a great book, especially for boys. And he said, last night you said you had an idea for a book. And I was like, oh, God, no. I'm sure everybody tells you that. And he does teach creative writing at Wittenberg University. And he said, well, we're going on this walk. How long is the walk? I said, it's about 3 miles. And he said, start talking. And okay, I was like, well, maybe it's more of an idea for like a show, but about 250 yards down the road, he goes, wait, it all comes down to one gerrymandered district in Wisconsin. And my big idea for this big national Democratic plan to move people around to all the different purple states to swing the election, all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, if it's just that, could I figure out a way to do it? And I just dove in the following weekend. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. But honestly, I think it was like 4 people in my life knew that I was trying. And I worked on it all summer, only on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, like 11 to 4, partly because I have a really full schedule, as you mentioned, and a busy life. And my day jobs takes a lot out of anyone who's covering the Trump administration knows, like, it's a lot. And so it was in the September of 2024 that I sent it in to my editor who did all the nonfiction. And he was like, wait, are we doing this? Like, I think we're doing it. And then I love how it turned out. I love it.
Yeah. It's
so
amazing.
I don't know, like, the why. So I actually saw George W. Bush, our former boss, President Bush, in early May, and he was talking about painting and why did you even try that? And I guess there comes a point in your life when your career is very full, and for my friends, maybe they're about to become empty nesters, and you have a desire to try something creative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have the time, the resources, maybe not the time, but the resources, the drive, the energy to try to create something. And I think that's where it came from, to be honest.
Was it hard for you at all to kind of get out of your own way? I mean, you talk a little bit about the fact that you did have some trepidation about writing fiction and you were in awe of these authors that you had read and thinking about, okay, could I actually do that? Was there anything that you did to kind of help propel yourself along, to kind of push yourself through the doubt that you might have had initially?
Well, deadlines are helpful, right? Because I had to make a deadline. So that was driving me forward. But also, once I started writing, I realized, oh, I guess I do know what I'm doing. And I loved writing the dialogue and making it funny. I love mentoring these 25-year-old girls around here. And so I got advice from my editor. He said, like, when you're writing dialogue, after the first draft, when you go back to reread, ask yourself, would anybody actually ever say that?
Such good advice.
That was so helpful. And now I'm still reading, now when I read things, I'm like, okay, no one would actually ever say that. And that's when I realize I get turned off in a book. I'm like, "Ugh," it's like a discordant note on a violin. You're like, no, that's not good enough. So the dialogue was one thing. There were other things that I would pick up along the way. Like I was like, how do you move a book along? Sometimes books take place in a day or over a course of a week, over a course of a year. Sometimes it's many, many years.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you get from this is 1 year, one election year. And I was like, well, how do I make sure people know that it's no longer winter, but it's spring? And then I read something that somebody had said, something about the leaves had changed in a way. And I thought, aha, you describe it that way. And now people know where you are in time in the story. Keeping it consistent that way was really important too. And I had a great copy editor. They think differently than me. And probably you. Copy editors are a different breed, and thank God for them. Because towards the election part of the book, she was like, well, that couldn't have happened on the Wednesday because in the last chapter, it was already Thursday. I was
Wow.
like, oh, you're right. I'm like, oh gosh, how did I miss that? But she would catch it.
Curious how you sort of envision, did you, when you originally envisioned the book, did you envision it as being sort of a parallel sort of work to Everything Will Be Okay? Or
Yeah.
did you did,
Yeah.
that was sort
Yeah,
of the original vision?
because, yeah,
I love that.
I really feel like, I'm not a mom, but you probably did this as a mom. Like you hide vegetables in the mac and cheese.
You do all kinds of things that you
So
try to
I
trick
felt
them.
like I took those lessons from Everything Will Be Okay and sprinkled them throughout here.
Mhm,
Such
mhm.
as recognizing that if you're a young American woman, educated, you won life's lottery. And all you have to do is decide how hard do you want to work. And that you have to realize, even at 25, now you've maybe been working for 3 years. You're in that career that you chose and you think you're stuck. You are not stuck. You can try something new. And life is a decision-making experience. And what I try to do with these young women is set them up to make good decisions. And I think they get it right most of the time. But there was also another thing that disturbed me that I talk a little bit about in Everything. Well, I do talk about it in Everything Will Be Okay. Because young women that come to me for mentoring, I'm sure this is true for you as well, they want to know about getting a promotion, negotiating, how long should they stay in a job? When do you know when to leave a job? Okay, those are all the typical questions. But at the end of almost every mentoring session, they'll say, can I ask you a more personal question? How can I find somebody? And they want to pair up, and they want a commitment, and they want a love story. So in 2024, 2024, there was a poll that came out that said young women in America, ages 19 to 29, 62% would never even consider dating somebody who didn't vote the way they did.
Interesting.
And I was like, girls, love is a law of chemistry. So if you're cutting yourself off from over half of the population, and then you're coming to me and saying you can't find anyone to date, I'm like, I wanted to get them out of that environment and that thinking and put them into a different place. And I think people were initially kind of surprised if they pick up the book that I write it from a Democrat's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very mindful to try to make sure everyone's treated fairly politically. It's not a book about politics. It's a book about campaign and a book about making good decisions and seeing if you can get out of your bubble in Manhattan and go to a flyover state where you think you're just going to meet a bunch of hicks and then end up falling in love with a small town and the people who live there. And in particular, having romance with these three girls, end up having romantic relationships with these three guys, and then having to make a decision, do you go back or not?
Yeah, yeah. I love that you make a distinction, too, between politics and values. They're not the same thing. And you
No.
make that really clear in the book. It's one thing to talk about aligning your values with that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, potentially. Those don't always align directly along political lines. And I suspect, especially now, because what you call a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. I mean, all those definitions have evolved since you and I were sort of growing up, initially in politics, right? And that
Yeah.
this idea that, centering yourself around what your values are and finding that person that shares those values, you
Mm.
make that point really clear in the book, which I love.
Yeah. Yes. And I just truly believe that whereas I talk about politics all day long and I report the news of the politics and I'm analyzing the politics, but politics is not who I am. And I do think that values piece is so important. And I'm not naive. Like, it is fiction. I get it that politics might be a really important piece of somebody's life, and that aligns with their values. And the girls that I write about here, these are not your free Palestine girls at Columbia University having a protest in a tent. These are just more like your everyday Democrat that's walking down the street. I had Jessica Tarlov from The Five read an early copy just to make sure I was on the right track. I didn't want to offend anybody. I'm not afraid of offending people, but that wasn't my intention. I wanted to try to get it right and believable. And she said, I love these girls so much and I wish they were real. And so do I. I think about them all the time. I still
Well,
think about them.
they probably kind of are, because I know one of your other projects that I've loved is your Minute Mentor
Uh-huh.
program. And I believe, or at least it seems like, you've based a lot of this and Everything Will Be Okay off of what you learned from these young women, both your own story, but also these
Mhm.
young women who you are mentoring and talking with. Maybe talk a little bit about the role that program and sort of what
Yeah.
you learned from it played out in this book.
Well, I got so much advice from friends of mine who participated in Minute Mentoring on the mentoring side. I'm sorry, as the mentors, because I don't have all the answers. But what I did find is I felt like the young people all had the same questions. So on the book tour, it was very interesting to meet young women who said, Everything Will Be Okay changed my life. Or I read it at just the right time when I needed some encouragement. Or you helped me think about how I could, get a job, leave a job, change careers. And I loved hearing all of that. And I figured I can put it in a story where you realize that you're not stuck, but also in early on, Dot Clark, the main character, she's working in high tech PR and she's realizing this might not have been the right career because she's not passionate about it at all. And she finds it boring and she wishes she had gone into politics. And she's got a friend from university who's working in Washington and her life looks so perfect, right? And it's so tempting now to compare yourself to others all the time. And it's available. Not only, it used to be just like people that you would see around you, but now you see it all day long on your social media. And to get yourself out of an environment where you're doing that and go and find people and meet them where they are, that was important. There's not a lot of time where they're just on their screens here. Like, how boring is that? You can read a book about somebody scrolling through their Instagram feed all day long. They're out and about and they're walking and they're experiencing. But there was another value that or a mentoring tip that I learned that I put in the book that's kind of hidden again, but also important. So Dot Clark and Marion Harper, they get invited to a family farm for dinner. And Dot is there to get intelligence for the Democrats. She's trying to understand how they could just flip this county. They only need a little bit more of the vote. And if they flip the county, they flip the state. If they flip the state, Democrats would win the presidential election. And they go to the family farm as guests. And she asked the farmer, so what do you think happened? Because Democrats all used to vote for Democrats. I'm sorry, farmers all used to vote for Democrats. But now they almost universally vote for Republicans. What happened? And the farmer starts to explain it from his point of view. And she goes to interrupt and argue with him. She catches herself and she says, maybe I should just listen. And I think that listening is such an undervalued skill. And I observe it a lot of people wanting to interrupt or finish somebody's sentence and move on. It's like they want to scroll through a conversation. And the most undervalued skill in leadership right now, in my opinion, is listening.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. You have two ears, right? And one mouth for a reason, as the
Yeah,
saying
and
goes.
use them in proportion.
Totally, totally. So, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how this conversation is part of our summer beach read series. Obviously, there's some great meat in this book. It's not just a beach read, but it's
Yeah.
something that I think
Thank you
people
for
can
saying
really.
that.
Yes, it's fantastic, really
Thank you.
fantastic. And I love the parallel to the other book. I think it's so brilliantly done. So, as part of the series, I've been talking to a number of female authors about how they develop their characters because, in every instance, these characters will go through career and life pivots and personal evolutions and all those things. So, maybe talk a little bit about how your own personal story,
Yeah.
your amazing love story with Peter, maybe, it enters into some of the advice and the storylines that are played out with your characters.
Sure. So it was funny when I saw President Bush, he asked me, he's like, Dana, is there sex in your book? And I said, no, sir, there's just like allusions to sex in my book. Like I wasn't going to write like explicit scenes. And when my dad died recently and he was reading Purple Saves towards the end, and the president, when I let him know, he said, aren't you glad you didn't write a sex scene now? I'm like, yes, yes, I am. Um, but the main character, Dot Clark, I think she's probably if you write what you know, she's probably the most like me. Um, and Mary, who's from Staten Island, she's fashionable and like tall, thin, has like very a high level of confidence, but she's not mean, but she's sharp. She's like super sharp and funny, but she's the only Democrat in her family. Everybody else is a Republican and they all love her. Mary is probably somebody that I would like to have some of her attributes. And then Harper, she wants to be an author, but she keeps making terrible decisions. She followed a boy after college who wanted to be an influencer, and he turned out to be not a good guy. She has to call home and get a ticket. So her parents sent her a ticket. One of my favorite lines is that she woke up the next day, there was a ticket available for her, and she's like, Coach, I guess that's fair. And she gets home, she starts teaching, and then, there's a moment where she's like, wow, I thought this would be better. She's teaching in a private school. It's terrible. And then the headmaster tries it on with her, and she's like, I'm out of here. So, and then you have Mary Russo working at a corporate law firm. She's like, I wanted to be a lawyer, but is this all there is to it? So in my experience, everyone that I mentor around that 25 years old has a quarter life crisis. My personal quarter life crisis was pretty awful. I never got asked out on dates. I had ambition. I was also at the time of the Monica Lewinsky scandal and all that. You remember those days?
Sure, of
Those
course.
terrible days. And
Yeah.
none of the women's groups stood up for her. And I was like, what in the world is happening? The Republicans were falling apart. I was going to join the Peace Corps. I was looking for a way out. And my friend at church, at our singles group, she said, remember, God says throughout the Bible, fear not, and you are not forgotten. And so I know I kind of just relaxed a little bit. And then I met Peter on an airplane.
Yeah. It's a
And there
great
was that
story.
moment where my favorite piece of advice that ends up throughout this book and also in Everything Will Be Okay is that choosing to be loved is not a career limiting decision. And making that leap is the best thing that ever happened to my career. Because I look back and I don't think I would have been able to do any of this had I not made that leap and lived in England for a year and lived in San Diego and realized I didn't want to do that. And then coming back to Washington after 9/11, and then my whole career changed. But if I look back on my life, there's really nothing I would have done differently.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason I wrote And the Good News Is, my first book, was that it's not about my plan. It's about having my eyes and ears open to all possibilities and to being so grateful that I was born in this country. Think of how many people, Laura, would love to trade places with us. We see it all the
Absolutely.
time. People are dying to get in here. They're doing illegal things to get in here. And we have this opportunity and kind of an obligation then to do good things with that gift.
Right. Right. It's why I think, when I one of the things that we talk about a lot on this podcast is what to do when you feel stuck at any point, whether it's in your, in your 20s or whether it's later, because at every point as you're changing and evolving and growing, you can feel that feeling of being stuck, but you're really not. You
Mm-hmm.
can draw from all these incredible experiences and
Mm-hmm.
opportunities that you've had. I love how you have taken all these elements of all the things that you've done over the years and all the experiences that you've had, something that I like to refer to as experience equity, and that you draw from it in such a beautiful way.
No, thanks.
And I think it's so incredibly powerful. So if the pieces, as you have, so many people reading this book, reading all of your books, actually, but if there's a particular takeaway that you want to make sure that they leave with, what would that be, Dana?
Well, I do think that that life is a decision-making experience, and that people are people wherever you go, and that Americans are much more neighborly than you might believe from social media or from just media in general, where we feel that we are so polarized. But actually, there's very interesting experiments being done by people that put their phone down on Friday evening and don't pick it up again until Sunday evening, right before they go back to work. And they just are part of their community for a full 48 hours. And they realize, oh, wait, actually, we all get along. And entire neighborhoods doing this. I was so inspired by that. And I have always connected to people through books. I have a rule. I don't talk about politics at the dog park, for example. I don't talk about politics on the weekends, but I will always about books. So I'll meet somebody. Let's say that they read Purple State. They say, "Oh, okay, I really like that." I'm like, "Oh, wait, so if you like that, you'll probably like this, or you'll like this." Oh, I thought of you. All right, or just even thinking about your son, he's going to head to college. And if he's looking for one beach read or a plain read, Raft of Stars by Andrew Graff, I thought was such a great book.
Right.
Or if somebody's really going through something and their son is deciding what should I do, I think Trey Gowdy's book, it's nonfiction. I would say it's some of the best advice I've read in a long time. It's called Start, Stay, or Leave. And especially for men, I think it's excellent for helping you figure out a decision. So that's something I've always tried to do, is figure out, okay, how can I connect with another human that has nothing to do with politics?
I love that.
And it might be dogs, it might be travel, values, as you said, or past experiences, but certainly books for me, always. I absolutely love reading. And after this accomplishment, I have to say, this seems weird to say, because I've had a lot of great experiences and opportunities and achievements. But when I pressed send on the final manuscript, I think it was my proudest professional moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it really, okay, so let's dig into that just a bit. Because it challenged you in a different way. Is that fair to say?
Completely. Writing anything and putting out your writing is such an act of vulnerability.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, I knew I had success in nonfiction. I could do that. But would people love this book? And I have to say that I love to read the comments after like some social media posts, because people really loved it.
Yeah.
The one thing I feel like I don't know if I achieved, and that is, my goal was to broaden out my outreach and communication beyond Republicans, conservatives, Fox News, and to the readers, all the readers out there that I love to connect with. I don't know if I did that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not a book about politics. In fact, my friend Christine Gunderson, who worked with us in the administration, she has a great new book out too called Behind White Picket Fences. She said, "Wow, you managed to write a book about politics without any politics." And
that in and of itself is an achievement, I think.
It was, yeah. So I don't know if I achieved that. I'm still working on it. I know, here's another thing. I have to prove myself as an author. I don't know if I'll ever write another nonfiction.
Really?
I don't think so. I feel like I've said all I was going to say on the mentoring front, at least for now. Although there's a part of me that thinks there's something out there for people my age, because people are going through a lot of different things right now, but it's an exciting time. I mean, being in my 50s is like, it's a like weird thing to say. You know, it's so weird. Every article that ran about Purple State, just journalistic practice, you write Dana Perino, comma, 53 or 54 during the book tour. I'm like, wow. I kept seeing that number over and over again. Gee, okay, I get it. But it's an exciting time because I feel like I do know what I'm doing in my job. I've never been happier than I am right now at Fox. Um, it's exciting to cover this time of technological innovation, um, but also kind of scary also at the same time. Um, but my hope is that I can take this professional accomplishment that I feel in Purple State and feel like I am fulfilled and inspired. Because I think that's what a lot of us are looking for.
Yeah.
Is that some of the feeling of feeling stuck is feeling uninspired.
Yeah.
So it could be lots of different things. I have a girlfriend, she's just picked up pottery. Turns out she's really good at it. And you just have to try a lot of different things to see what you're good at.
Having those outlets and also being brave enough to know that you're probably not going to be all that good at whatever that new thing is at first, because no one is, right? And
Right.
part
I'm
of
so
that,
embarrassed of anybody who read an early draft of Purple State. Please forgive me.
it's a process that you go through, right? And part of the process is getting comfortable with the fact that those first few drafts are probably not going to be that great.
And working with a professional, like George Bush talks about, taking painting lessons every day, Monday through Friday. He took painting lessons for years. And he's like, you have to like learn from somebody else. So my editor, Sean Desmond, was excellent. Like he'd say, okay, in the next 5 beats, that could be chapters, or the next 5 things that need to happen are Dot and Danny need to go on a date. Okay, so where are they going? He wouldn't give me specifics, but we would talk things through. And I also really wanted to please him. I'm a pleaser. And
Interesting.
so I would work really hard before I sent it back in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You talked about the fact that you didn't share the fact that you were working on this particular project with anyone. And I'm fascinated by that because a lot of the advice that you get, especially I think this is true for authors, is that, when you share it with your audience or on social media or wherever, it gives you that accountability, right? That you have to stick to that. But Virginia Hume said something very similar to what you just said. She didn't tell anybody. She just worked on that first book. And now, of course, she's written her second one
Yeah.
as well.
Liberty Island.
Yes, they're both fantastic. But maybe why you made that decision, was it just sort of getting comfortable with that additional level of vulnerability in embracing fiction authorhood, or was it something else?
I think it was a little bit of fear, that vulnerability. And also because I have a really busy day job and I didn't want anyone to think that I was sidetracked.
Mm. Mhm.
So when it came out that I was right, that it was written, I was like, wait, so many people were like, when did you do that? So nobody could say, oh, she's really didn't nail that analysis because she was distracted. I was able to compartmentalize the work on the book versus my works. So I'd finish writing on a Sunday. That didn't mean I didn't think about the book. Like when I was walking, and I kept on my notes app, just all sorts of things like a funny scene or an idea. Or I remember actually at the end, I was trying to figure out, I always knew how I wanted the book to end. But I didn't quite know how to pull it all together. And now I need to wrap it up. We're on page 320. Like that's it. Like I need to wrap it up. And we were driving. Well, Peter was driving. I don't drive here. And we were on our way to New Jersey at the beach. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" And he thought he thought he was going to hit a car. He's like, "What?" And I said, "Wait, don't talk." And I said, "I got it. I got it." And I figured out, it was like finding the last puzzle piece. I was like, I found it. And then I wrote it down and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I got home, went straight upstairs, and I rewrote it probably 14 times, like those last 10 pages, just to make sure that the timing, the sequencing, the surprise, that I nailed it. And even now, like when I read those last few pages, I get the goosebumps. I absolutely love how it ended. So I think that's where the inspiration is, right? So then it's like, whoa, I guess I'll do that again.
Yeah. What was it easy for you to, because you had such a compressed amount of time to work with, is it easy for you to dive in, or do you need like an hour to kind of level set or meditate or kind of get
Yeah.
in the mood?
Uh,
I find it hard to get into the writing
yeah.
space like right away. Is that
Yeah.
true
There's
for
a
you?
lot of great ways to procrastinate. And I would put my phone over on the, across the room.
Very smart.
So I wouldn't just like be like, have a moment and be like, oh, let's see what's on Twitter.
Yes.
So I did that. And yes, the time frame, I think that helped me. I didn't have a lot of extra time and I had a deadline to meet. But also because what I would do is I'd take all those notes that I'd written all week, and on Friday afternoon, I would organize that. And then I could just dive in. And when I think back, like, how did I write it? I remember where I was. I don't know how it happened. The story just came out.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's weird that I don't know. And I wonder if it's. Please believe me. I am not comparing writing a book to childbirth. But you know how you're a mom of two. It's like the pain, the agony, and then 2 years later, you're like, let's do that again.
Piece of cake. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I can do that. That's no problem.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's how
all of those weird
authors are.
hormones. Yes.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Okay. What can we expect next from you?
I feel like these girls are not done.
Fantastic.
So nothing to announce yet, but I think that they have a story that continues. And I also now I see situations, and I'm like, oh, that could be a book. Or we were at an event, and I was looking around. I'm like, someone could definitely get murdered here.
Do you
And
find
now
yourself?
that I realize how to put the pieces together, I'm like, oh, I know how to do that.
Yeah. Do you find yourself missing them now that they're
Yes, I
kind
think
of
about
out in
them
the
all the
world?
time.
Yeah.
My assistant, Kate, was one of the only people that knew that I was writing it. And for about a year, she and I would say things like, oh, that is so Purple State. And we would laugh about it, but nobody else knew what we were talking about. So yeah, we talk about them a lot.
Love it. I love it. I've loved this conversation. I'm so grateful to you. And I'm so proud of you for putting so much good
Thank you.
stuff out into the world. This book is fantastic. Again, it's here. It's Purple State. You can see it behind Dana, and here is my copy as well. We're excited to include this book in our She Said podcast summer
How
read
fun.
series. So Dana, my friend, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Have a great summer.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
You too.
Take
Great to
care.
see you.